Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 7th, 2021 meeting of the Gaithersburg Planning Commission, and a special welcome to City Manager Tanisha Briley. Good evening, everyone. John, do you want to jump in and offer a special welcome as well for the City Manager?
Yes, indeed. I'd like to do that. Good evening, Planning Commission. I am pleased this evening to introduce our relatively new City Manager, Tanisha Briley, who joined us in September, mid-pandemic, who is on tour visiting most of our boards and commissions. Tanisha's career in the public sector spans nearly 2 decades, with 14 years in city management. She most recently served as City Manager of Cleveland Heights, Ohio. Prior to Cleveland Heights, Tanisha served as management analyst, budget manager, and eventually assistant city administrator for the city of Davenport, Iowa. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in business administration from Ohio State University and a Master of Public Administration with a local urban management certificate from Cleveland State University. Tanisha is also a graduate of the Senior Executives in State and Local Government program at Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government and the National Forum for Black Public Administrators Mentor Program. So welcome, Tanisha.
Yes, welcome, Tanisha. Did you say Ohio State?
He's supposed to say the Ohio
He
State.
forgot the the.
He forgot the the.
I wondered about that.
There could be disciplinary action that we got to talk about, John. That was the most important thing of the bio.
Well, that was actually a Final Jeopardy question this week. What school tried to, I think, trademark or copyright the?
Yes.
And that
we did not succeed in that endeavor, but it doesn't matter. It's still we still say it.
Well, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Chair Bauer. I really don't have much to say. Thank you for the introduction, John. My most favorite part of the bio these days is working for this amazing community and organization. I don't have to tell you all that the staff I've inherited are incredible, and you know the opportunities ahead of us and the work that we're building on in the past. It's all just remarkable, very exciting, and I'm happy to be here and wanted to try and make rounds as I might have done in person to kind of check in on the boards, commissions, and committees. I won't keep you long. I don't want to belabor your evening at all, but I will also entertain any questions. That's been sort of a fun game as I've toured through city staff meetings in different divisions and departments throughout the city. So I will take 1 or 2 questions, and there's nothing off limits. How about that?
All right. Okay, commissioners, now you're on the spot. Anybody?
So when you heard about Gaithersburg, did you say, where is Gaithersburg?
No, actually, the fun part about it has been helping my family pronounce it correctly. I think they say it differently every single time. Mom says it differently every time. I had heard of Gaithersburg, actually. In our profession, you know, we tout several things like strategic planning is a big deal for city management, and Gaithersburg's plan was highlighted several years ago at ICMA at our professional associations conference. So I remember hearing the name then, and I know several folks who worked for the city of Rockville and have met others throughout my career. So it wasn't a foreign place. I will say I had never imagined myself living in the DMV. And this has been an interesting transition, but an exciting one, really. It's a lot of opportunity here for my husband and my 2 dogs. They have lots of opportunity as well. So we're looking forward to getting to know the community post-pandemic, should we ever get there.
Yeah, I guess you arrived at the height of the pandemic, and it was probably pretty hard to see and meet, huh?
Yes, it's been an interesting transition. There was a period of time where I really hadn't, if I saw staff in person, it was with masks. So there were a lot of folks I didn't even recognize when I'd see them on Zoom because I hadn't seen their full face. So interesting tidbits like that. I've not had a meeting yet in the council chambers, which is, you know, really, really interesting. So I just decided that we will still introduce me as the new city manager for at least another year, so I can make up for that lost time.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. Commissioners, anything else you want to offer your welcome or any questions?
I have about 15 questions about staffing and then future plans for, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh dear. Make an appointment.
I want to know your dogs' names.
Oh, they are Max and Zuri. So they are litter mates, which I learned to not do after I already agreed to take them. And they are 2 years old. Zuri is the girl, she's black, and Max is the boy, he's white dog, and they are Salt and Pepper, Tom and Jerry all day long. So
What breed are they? A mutt?
yeah, mostly Schnauzer, mostly miniature Schnauzer, but there's some other things mixed in there. There's somehow an American foxhound happening and other interesting mixes in there. So they keep me on my toes for sure.
Oh, good.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. You're welcome to stick around as long as you like, but if your little box disappears, we'll fully understand that too.
I will stick around for a few minutes, and thank you all for having me. If I can just put a little plug in for one of your agenda items later on for the staff delegation of temporary outdoor permit authority. We are really looking to expand that authority so that we can continue to support our small business and restaurant communities here. And we know that these are, we were able to pull it together and pull it off for the pandemic, but it's certainly been a popular and helpful addition for the business community. So I just want to throw my little plug in there for that and appreciate your support and consideration of that later on in the agenda.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that, let's move on to our site plan agenda. The first up tonight is SP-8934-2021 construction of a 690 square foot, one-story addition to an existing house at 701 Hope Lane in the R90 medium density residential zone. And this is a final site plan. And I believe Caroline, you're presenting from staff, right? And you're on mute.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Good evening, Caroline.
Good evening. This is a final site plan for application SP 8934-2021. If we can put up page number 4. This is an application for final site plan that is before you, even though it is a single family home, because there is no approved site plan for the site that exists. And because the applicant is increasing the number of stories on the property. You can see on the aerial, this is a corner lot. It's 701 Hope Lane, but it actually faces Diamond Drive, which is where all of the 4-lane road with the trees. And the applicants are adding 690 square foot addition to the home. It is required under section 24-168A that this go to the Planning Commission because of the additional story to the structure. So the applicant, Anna Mertzai of Manzel Construction, is here, I hope. And I'll turn it over to her and let her introduce it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I don't see her.
Yeah, good afternoon. This is Gene Brown and Brooke Bernal. We're the homeowners. I know Anna's participating, but I don't see her right now.
Okay.
As Caroline said, first I'm going to say I'm Gene Brown. This is Brooke Bernal, the homeowners, and I want to thank you for your time this evening. And I wanted to ask if everybody had the opportunity to look at the site plan documents that were presented.
Sure did.
Perfect. As Caroline said, it's 690 square feet. Brooke and I've been here for 4 years. She's been here for about 10. And we have a full house. Quite honestly, she has 2 girls, 11 and 16, or 12 and 16. And my daughter is going to be moving in with us, who's 14 years old. So it's going to be quite full, which is what push the requirement of why we wanted to increase the living space of our house. And primarily the decision had to do with, we love this neighborhood, we really do, and we didn't want to sell and then go somewhere else. And so the obvious answer was to request permission to add a story of, to our current split level home, which would be adding a master bathroom, bedroom, small laundry room, closet space, and office space. We have engaged with our direct neighbors with our planning process and answered a lot of their questions, and the response has been overwhelmingly supportive. And we've additionally spoke to our wider West Riding neighborhood co-neighbors with via Facebook page, West Riding neighborhood page, and all of the responses we've gotten back were overwhelmingly positive. And in planning this process, we've also engaged an architect because we love this neighborhood so much. We wanted to make sure we stayed within the style and aesthetics. We're not coming in and leveling and building a McMansion or anything like that crazy. And yeah, that's it in the nutshell. If there are any questions or if Anna has anything to add to that. Thank you.
Only going to add that they're adding a story on the left side of the house. The house is a split level house, so it's not even adding an entire full new floor. They already have sort of half of that height on the right side of their home.
Sure.
And they're only building up.
Let me jump in. I'm sorry to cut you off. And thank you for that explanation, and to the Browns too. Why don't you go ahead and have staff pull up the presentation as you talk about it, so we have some visuals to go with what you're discussing.
Okay, sure. This is my first city
no
council
problem.
meeting, so let me know if there's some procedural things that you need.
Let's put up page 5, Anna, and then you can talk about the site and then go from there. Then there are the photographs of the house as it exists, and then plans for the addition. And we can go through those page by page.
Okay, so as you see on this, I don't see where they said to see the page numbers that are in the agenda. I was looking for that so that I can correspond.
Yeah.
But on the screen that you see right now, where it's showing the site plan and the plat on there, you see that the addition is being built on the existing structure only. They're adding a very small portico in the front part of the house, but it's not extending the house. So we're not expanding the footprint of the house. We're only just building up. And the second floor is intended to be 9 feet. With the total average mean is about 20 feet to the roof mean. It's well within the style of the look and the feel of the neighborhood. And you want to go to the next page, or?
Go ahead and go through the presentation, why don't you, as you describe this thing. I know you've got some elevations and some plans to back that up.
Yes. So if we can go to the next page. So you see in this part where it's circled yellow, it's almost even probably going to be about that high of where the addition is going to be. And it's only on the portion where the existing home is, not over the portico. So it's not the complete portion on the side there. So we can go to the next page. And so the addition spans throughout from the full front of the house to the back of the house, but not over the carport. And so there will be windows on the side of the carport. I think that might be in the next side that you can see there. If you go to the next page, please. So you see in the front, what we've done to kind of keep with the style of the house is we're adding a little bump out in the front for the windows to make it more unified. And in the back, the windows are pretty minimal, just to allow for light, but to also provide privacy since it's going to be a master bedroom. On the next page, I believe you will see that there's 2 small windows on the side, and you can see where the existing pitch is for the roof of the carport. Next page. So you can see from this sort of view of what the second floor or third floor addition, I guess we're calling it now, is going to include is primarily a master suite. So when you walk up a half flight of stairs, there's a master bedroom. To the right side, there's a very small laundry room and a master bathroom. On the other side of that, there's the bedroom and a closet, as well as a small office flex area. Next slide. So you can see here that the average height of the house we have adding on here, it's about 20 feet at 20 and a half feet to the roof mean. Next, please.
I think that's the last one.
Okay. And that's all. I mean, it's a pretty standard sort of addition. Please let me know if you have any questions that I can address, or either from me or from the homeowners.
Sure. Okay. Is that it for the presentation? Anything else you wanted to present? Because what we'll do, just to give you kind of an outline of how we do this. So you presented the proposed project. We've read the staff analysis and the submittals with all the drawings. And we'll get some questions from the commissioners if they have any. Then we'll ask if there's anybody in the public who wants to comment or testify on it. And then we'll come back and you can answer any questions that the public might have brought up. And then we'll go to the staff recommendation and discussion. So that's sort of how this will play out. So if you're done with your part of the presentation, at least for now, commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
None.
Okay, nothing, no hands rising. All right, Chris, can I ask you to play the video about testifying so that if anybody in the public wants to talk, they know what to do. Your video appears to be on mute. Can you all hear the video? Okay.
No, I can't.
Chris,
No, we cannot.
Chris, we couldn't hear the video.
Good evening. If you've connected to the meeting tonight via Zoom and you're on a desktop or a laptop and you wish to make a public comment, we can't currently see or hear you. What you need to do, please, is wiggle your mouse around and look towards the bottom center of your screen. You should see a raise hand button. Go ahead and click on that now for us, please. Alternatively, if you've connected in via telephone, you can press *9.
Excellent. Okay, so let me go to the attendees and see if anyone is raising their hand to comment. I don't see any on this. I'll leave that open just a few more minutes. But in the meantime, Caroline, why don't you go ahead and do the recommendation? If anybody does raise their hand, we can get to them.
Staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report, findings and recommendation, grant SP 8934 2021 final site plan, finding it in compliance with sections 24-170 and 24-171 of the City Code.
Okay, commissioners, I think what we should probably do is have a discussion, kind of in the establish pretty clearly the parameters for this. We're looking for compatibility in the neighborhood. They don't, as I recall, in West Riding have a design guideline to comply with. It's really been a series of homes that were developed quite a while ago, but they didn't have a design guideline to go through with additions or new construction. And I don't believe the HOA has a design review committee. Is that correct? Or I'll actually
I don't think that they have an HOA, right? You don't have an HOA.
I'll ask the homeowners. No, okay. So I'm sorry, say that again.
Hidden gem that there's no HOA.
Okay. All right. So with that, I think we're looking at some basic compatibility issues. Commissioners, any comments or questions on the application? We're really in discussion, so comments at this point.
I mean, John, I'd love to just throw in a sort of larger planning idea of that, being able to insert and add to existing housing stock without, tremendous disturbance to an existing well-established neighborhood is wonderful. It's something that, we struggle with at the planning and zoning end all the time. And this is a great example of staying within the sort of parameters of an existing neighborhood, but being able to add square footage to something without being terribly disruptive, past construction. So it's a wonderful individual, and I'm happy for the homeowners, but also in a bigger on a bigger scale, it's a great sort of planning concept, and this is a great version of it. So I have no other comments beyond that.
Thanks for those comments. That's great.
Yeah,
Anybody?
this is Danny. I agree with Matt, and the homeowner, Mr. Brown, noted that they're increasing their square footage, but it's not making it a McMansion. So I think it will integrate well into the neighborhood, and it absolutely serves their needs for their expanding family. So I think it's great that they can stay in the neighborhood and enjoy their house and not be, bursting at the seams.
Great comments, Danny. Thanks. And to put a little bit kind of specifics to the compatibility with the neighborhood, there are two-story homes in there that are not split level. So in terms of ridge line, height, massing, there's pretty good precedent in there for houses that look a little, not exactly like this, but that would be this height or this basic mass. So I don't think it does anything to step outside of what the context is for the neighborhood, and certainly not increasing the footprint helps that a lot. So yeah, I think it came off really nice. There's one little nit I have to say. It's not binding, but I will say it with everybody in play. I was so disappointed to see you not make the roof over the entrance, the little stoop and the roof at the entrance wider. It's just me.
Then we couldn't do the really nice thing with the windows, it's gonna
Oh
look
no,
really
it
pretty.
still could have been. It could have been just a couple more.
And we're
feet.
planning on doing a really nice treatment for the portico with some a metal roof there with the siding, the split siding metal roof there. So it's gonna look nice. We didn't want it to stand out too much, so
Okay.
trying to be minimally invasive, but get them the maximum of what they need for their family. So that was sort of the goal for this project.
I will defer to you. I think you did a nice job.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? Oh, sure, Sharon.
I just want to say that I was glad to hear that your neighbors are so supportive, because I think it looks lovely, and I'm glad that you also have the extra space, the extra land next to you, because you're not looking into anybody else's house, or it doesn't seem like it anyway. It doesn't seem, anyway, it seems like you have a lot of space, which is great. So tagging on what Matt said, I think it looks lovely. So good for you.
And another thing too, that you can't see it in the site plan because it doesn't show the topography, but the closest next neighbors are higher than they are. So even though they're adding on the addition on the top or planning to, it's not really obstructing their view so much because they're already lower than the house that's next to them.
Yeah, and I know one of your near neighbors is one of our very own city council members, and they didn't step up and say they didn't like it. So I'm going to go with that. That's a good sign.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've had a lot of discussion about this planning with Mike prior to this.
Yeah. Well, it's not that we take his advice that seriously, but I get it. All right, very good. Any other comments from commissioners?
No, I mean, I'd echo what everyone else has said. I mean, I think the split level, the sort of plague that is split level family homes on American residential architecture is what it is, and there are limited options for how to artfully add on to them, and short of staying low and just taking up more footprint. I think this is a very good solution to the constraints, the hand you were dealt in the existing architecture of your home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Yeah.
I think what you guys will see is, and Matt, this actually speaks to what you had mentioned before, is that a lot of neighbors who have split levels are excited to see what the outcome is, because it's something they have been considering, but just weren't sure how to execute. So I'm curious to see, this neighborhood is so well loved that we want to continue to live here and everyone else does, but as we're all expanding our families, we're like, how do we do it in the best way possible? So hopefully this will continue to just evolve the neighborhood in a positive way.
Great. All positive thoughts. I'm so happy to see this come. And when neighborhoods are able to support this kind of work, something's going right. So thank you all for bringing that in. All right. I think with that we are ready for a motion.
Okay, I'll jump in there. Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibit submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report findings and recommendations, grant SP-8934-2021 final site plan, finding it in compliance with sections 24-170 and 24-171 of the city code with no conditions.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Sharon?
Second.
Thank you, Sharon. All right, with that, let me do the roll call vote. Commissioner Wessel,
Aye.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn,
Aye.
Commissioner Cantrell,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye as well. That passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. Good luck. Great to see a project like this coming into this. They're coming into the neighborhood. So congratulations and good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right, that takes us to SP-8869-2021 minor site and building renovations at 907 North Frederick Avenue in the C2 General Commercial Zone. And this is final site plan, and presenting from staff is Jasmine Forbes. Good evening, Jasmine.
Evening. To the rest of my group, tech team, can I have packet page number 46, please? So staff is before you to present the final site plan application SP-8869-2021. The application is based upon concept site plan application SP-7277-2016, which was approved on August 3rd of 2016 for the overall Fitzgerald Auto Mall renovation project. The concept site plan divided the project into different phases, and this final site plan is the last phase for this project. Next page, please. As shown on the screen, the Toyota dealership is located at 907 North Frederick Avenue. The property is accessible from North Frederick Avenue and Russell Avenue. This application comes before the Planning Commission in accordance to section 24-168, which requires the Planning Commission to grant final site plan approval. And the applicant's also requesting approval for a minor amendment to the Forest Conservation Plan, and that application number is EMV-8963-2021 pursuant to section 22 of the City Code. And the applicant's requesting minor site and building renovations for the existing Toyota dealership. And I will have Doug Tilley, who's the engineer for the project, to start the presentation. Next page, please.
Jasmine, while you're kind of transitioning to the presentation, I must have misread the application. Is there an ENV application to go with this site plan?
Yes, it's at EMV-8963-2021. It's an amendment.
Are we doing a second motion potentially for that, or is that folded into the actual site plan?
It'll be folded into the motion for the site plan.
Okay, all right, thanks.
All right, so this is my first virtual commission hearing, so forgive me, I'm gonna do my best, but I have been for commission several times for this project. Thank you all for having me back. My name is Doug Tilley. I'm with O'Connell and Lawrence. We're the engineer on this project. This is for final site plan SP-8869-2021. As Jasmine introduced, it's the final phase of a phased development. Next slide, please. The project team, not everybody is here today, of course, but presenting tonight is going to be myself, Patrick Swift from Penny Design Group, who is the architect, and Mr. Steve Scobo from Novum Structures, LLC. They are the portal feature sign consultant on this project. We also have Chuck Miller from Porter Construction with us, who is available to answer questions, although he's not formally presenting as part of this. Next slide, please. So there is a long history for this project. I've been before commission several times on this, going back to the original concept site plan, which was approved in 2016. We've had several sort of final site plans for the individual phases, the Hyundai Subaru refacing, the Panhandle parking lot area, modification removal of a existing pond area and replacement with an underground detention system and parking lot. The parking garage and site improvements, and then an AFP for the garage solar panels were approved in December 2017. And then there were two final amendment to final plans approved in 2019 and 2020 respectively for a retaining wall, and then also for some side canopies that were installed adjacent to the Toyota showroom building, which is the subject of this, this hearing herein. Next slide, please. So some critical items about this particular part of the development, as Jasmine stated, this is essentially the closeout of concept site plan SP 7277 2016. It's the last of four significant phases. You can see the overall limits of disturbance they're on, approximately 32,000 square feet, divided into, it's actually 6 separate areas, 5 of which are much smaller than the other one. The key points associated with this: the installation of the portal sign feature and a front canopy that sits directly behind it attaches to the building. Refacing of the existing Toyota showroom building, which Patrick will talk about in more depth. Various site improvements to improve accessibility, to just improve the general ability of customers to get in and around the overall facility, and minor parking upgrades associated with that. Final parking lot green space installation, final parking modifications and layout, final signage layout, by which I mean stop signs, on-site type, directional wayfinding type signage, and then the overall closeout of this site plan as previously mentioned. Next slide, please. So existing conditions, this is existing conditions as of this sort of phase herein. The Toyota showroom faces Maryland 355, a very limited amount of sort of external demolition associated with this project. There's a light pole that's going to be removed because it's going to be in the new drive aisle out there. A certain number of parking spaces are being removed as part of this application and are going to be reallocated at certain locations around the site. Next slide, please. So these are proposed site improvements at a bit more of a macro level, and we're going to get a little bit closer to the Toyota facility itself in the next slide, but you can see kind of the general scope of the improvements here on from a site perspective. Again, minor, parking upgrades, the addition of bicycle parking and motorcycle/scooter parking, which was a requirement as part of the conceptual site plan, the concept site plan. ADA parking improvements both on parcel H and on parcel G. The Toyota facility is parcel G. There is a couple minor upgrades on parcel H, which is the location of the body shop associated with this facility. And then you can see in the hatched green areas are the areas where parking lot green space is being added as parking islands as part of this particular application. Certain green spaces have already been added to the site as we've progressed through the overall development of the project. Next slide, please. So in the vicinity of the building, you can see there's a little bit more granularity to the actual improvements here on. Bicycle parking and signage at the face of the building, a new light pole outside of the face as well, near significantly improved access sidewalk in front of the customer spaces that are going to be out front of the building. The portal sign is in front of the building. You can see it kind of as a dark shaded bar directly in front of the building. And again, Patrick and Steve are going to talk a little bit more about that sign in particular. Sign feature, I should say sign feature. This application is not for the sign itself. That's going to be coming in a future application, but for the actual feature wall. ADA parking and signage with access improvements at the bottom right portion of the slide there, just in front of the new facility or the revamped facility. A rear stairwell coming off the backside, and improved concrete access walk for access to the building on the rear, and then storm drain connections from the building drains to the existing concrete storm drain that travels right along the drive aisle just to the north of the actual facility. Next slide, please. So there's also a request for a modification to existing ENV 7422-2016, the forest conservation approval that has existed for this project. The scope of the forest conservation approval is simply reallocation of trees from certain locations to other locations, and it's in conjunction with the modification to the location of said parking islands. So now the parking islands have been moved as part of a previous amendment to final plan. This is cleaning it up so that we have a clear and concise location of said trees within said parking islands, or modified to another location on site where there was they would have fit a little bit better. There's no change in the number of trees. It's simply a reallocation on site. And so with that, I am going to turn this over to Patrick Swift of Penny Design Group, who is the project architect.
Thank you, Doug. Good evening, everybody. This is my first time presenting to the city of Gaithersburg, so it's a pleasure to be here. As Doug mentions, there's a lot more site work going on in this particular application that we're talking about here today. But if you can click through to the next slide, please. We'll see here sort of the metamorphosis of the building as it existed before this application and the proposed exterior alterations that are currently undergoing or being, they're currently underway. I'm sorry. So this building has been on this site for quite some time. It's looked dated with the black spandrel glass, the pyramid sort of look to it. The just even the shape of the building has been it's dated. So in conjunction with all the site work that's going on, we are taking this opportunity to upgrade the exterior of the building, new fascia materials, completely brand new and energy efficient storefront systems around the entire perimeter of the building. And then of course, as you see in the bottom front elevation here, tagged phase 2B, we see the new Toyota portal element being added here. So Steve will talk further about that next, but just to briefly talk about this and separate or distinguish the two different portions of the Toyota portal. The Toyota portal is this white architectural element that stands out immediately in front of the building. It's basically attached to the building. The signs that Doug mentioned earlier would be the red Toyota logo, the Toyota letters, and the Fitzgerald letters above the opening in the portal. Those signs are part of a separate signage application, so they're not the focus for tonight. Along with the facade and the storefront upgrades, we are replacing the stair that's at the back of the building. It's in some disrepair. It's an exposed steel stair that's been rusting away and degrading over time. So this will be replaced with a new concrete and masonry stair that's consistent with some of the other elements going on in the building as well. If you can click through to the next slide, please. Not that this is part of the discussion for tonight, but just going to show or to speak to the level of alterations that we are proposing here or are currently underway. The interior of this building will be completely upgraded as well. The first phase of the project is complete. This would be the south side of the showroom that you see in the bottom image with furniture staged, all brand new finishes. You can see in the top image, top left corner of the screen there, the old showroom was again dated and in need of an upgrade. So not a whole lot for us architecturally, subject to the site plan discussion tonight, but we did just want to speak to the upgrades that we are making to the building. And with that, I think I'll kick off to Steve Scobo from Novum to talk more about the portal.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Next slide, if you could, please. Again, I'm Steve Scobo with a company called Novum Structures. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. We've had the pleasure of working with Toyota as one of their certified providers since about 2005. Our sole purpose really is to support their national brand image by incorporating some standard components while working with the local dealer, architect, and design team to provide proportional and aesthetically pleasing applications for each portal execution on a national basis. So accordingly, each of our systems is fully engineered to local standards and contains some similar structural steel framing, aluminum cladding, our light diffusing glass, and an internal LED system as well. Next slide, please. So really these next two slides give a little bit more detailed look at the materials. The steel trusses, as you can see, provide some uniform depth of our system, again, in accordance with Toyota's brand image. The perimeter white cladding, or the ACM cladding, give it a nice clean finish on the exterior or on the perimeter. And then we use a custom light diffusing glass on both the front and the back side for a couple of reasons, which we'll get to. Next slide, please. That custom glass actually provides a very aesthetically pleasing textured daytime appearance, but more importantly, it works with the lighting system to uniformly distribute the light that comes out of the portal with the custom LED system. Again, both the lights and the glass are both custom engineered for Toyota for this purpose. And as you can see in the photo there on the left side, the LED system is an indirect cutoff and shielded system, again, to try and minimize any light spill from the portal element, and it can, again, it provides a very uniform appearance in the evening. I think Doug's got a photo we'll show you here a little later in the presentation to kind of give you the overall look with that. So in a nutshell, that's Portal 101 as fast as I can go through it. Next slide, and I'll throw it back to Doug.
Thanks, Steve. So in closing, these are the upgrades that are proposed now. You can see on this slide, I had OC&L staff go to a number of different dealerships, Toyota dealerships in the vicinity of the city to just, I think, give the commissioners a flavor of what they can expect to see out on the site when they move forward. So you can see we visited Antwerp and Clarksville and 355 in Rockville, Jim Coleman in Bethesda, Dark Cars and Sheehy. So a number of other Toyota dealers in the vicinity of the city here. Next slide, please. And this is what you're going to see. I mean, these are, you know, photos taken by my staff, but you can see the portal itself is not necessarily uniform to individual sites. It's custom to fit individual sites, which is the case here as well. Next slide, please. And you can see this is what you should expect to see when you're out there. And it's, you know, in thinking about this, when I was initially involved in this project, I realized that I had seen several of these on several of these dealers going through. And further, if you can, next slide, please. This is the expectation of what this is going to look like at night. You can see it's a muted light, but prevalent, but muted. The light is actually, it's not overwhelming to anyone. And this particular facility is actually in Idaho, excuse me. But this is the expectation of what the city should see when the project is complete. A nice muted tone that looks very appealing and fits in with the architecture and will be a natural upgrade to what's there now, frankly. And next slide. And with that, we just, the whole project team and I would very much like to appreciate the ability to present to you tonight. And we are happy to answer any questions that the commission has. Thank you so much. Great,
thank you. So in the particular application of this portal element on the building against, is the piece freestanding or is it anchored to the building? Some of the examples that look like it was a freestanding, almost like a sign, almost like a billboard out in front of the building.
I can answer that question. This is Patrick from Penny Design Group. That the portal here at Toyota in Gaithersburg is attached to the building.
Okay. So Jasmine, it sort of raises the question is how do you calculate, you know, at what point does this stop being a monument sign and start being a building facade when you've lit the whole face of it based on our sign ordinance? Have you guys internally looked at that? And
now I can go back to Greg, but I know when we did the whole amendment to the sign ordinance before, this would have been read as a sign. But with the amendment, with the sign package, we had seen this wall as more of an architecture feature, not a sign per se.
Okay, very good. Commissioners, any other questions? Jump in. No? I'll do one more. The portal that's proposed, are you doing new foundation work for it, or does it bear on some existing structure within the existing building?
It will require some new foundation work. So yes,
okay.
that will be part of this.
Okay, so technically this footprint. All right, great. Then let me look. Give me a second here, and I will see if anybody from the public is queued up. And I guess what we should do is go ahead and play the video again for folks to know how to comment.
Good evening. If you've connected to the meeting tonight via Zoom and you're on a desktop or a laptop and you wish to make a public comment, we can't currently see or hear you. What you need to do, please, is wiggle your mouse around and look towards the bottom center of your screen. You should see a raise hand button. Go ahead and click on that now for us, please. Alternatively, if you've connected in via telephone, you can press *9.
Okay, so that doesn't seem to have caused any hands to be raised. All right, so Jasmine, what is staff's recommendation, please?
So before I read it, I do want to note that I noticed that in the motion, there is a minor typo. There was an incorrect section number called. So when I read it out, I'm going to call it the correct number.
Okay.
So staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibit submitted, the applicant's testimony, the staff report, staff findings, and recommendation, grant SP-8869-2021 and ENV-8963-2021 Fitzgerald Lake Forest Automall Toyota final site plan approval, finding in compliance with sections 24-170 and 24-171 of the city code with one condition.
So you changed 212 to 171. Okay. All right. Commissioners, to get this started, let me just get a clarifying question out of the way. I meant to ask this before, but net height of the new portal relative to the existing black spandrel piece, are we going higher, lower, or about the same? Patrick, that might be for you.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'm not armed with it. I can try to look that up and get back to you with that. But if I remember correctly, the new Toyota portal is shorter than the existing height or the original height of the black pyramid roof.
Okay, great.
The pyramid roof was removed completely, so you will not see that behind the portal.
Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioner, go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. The Toyota symbol and sign, and I'm looking on one of the pages you showed. It's so the that red symbol and the red Toyota, is that, so that's light diffusing? It's being lit by the black, excuse me, by the white opaque glass block, correct?
I'm gonna ask Steve to verify what I think I understand here. So the red Toyota logo, the Toyota letters, and the black Fitzgerald letters all are mounted directly to the portal, but those three sign groups have their own internal lighting. So they're actually they're not lit from behind by the portal, but they've got their own internal lighting. Steve Scobo, can you confirm that for me?
The Toyota logo and Toyota letters, the red that you see on the screen, those are internally LED illuminated, have their own separate lighting system. The head mark in this photo, or the Fitzgerald on the specific application, is non-illuminated. It's just a formed plastic letter, so that would just show through the backlit from the portal lighting. But practically, it's more just using the white glass as a backdrop for that. So in this photo, Fitzgerald non-illuminated, the red illuminated.
Okay, thank you. And that answers my question exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
No problem.
Very good. Commissioners, any concerns with the proposal? None?
None. Very straightforward renovation.
Yeah.
Nothing to complain about.
I mean, it's not obtrusive. It looks nice. I don't have a problem with it.
I should add that I did drive out just to see one at night, almost accidentally, but not quite. And it was not as intrusive as I was concerned it was.
Yeah, the thing that comes to mind is our hard work and somewhat difficult discussions about why we were doing something to our sign ordinance to limit the amount of backlit background signage along, our commercial streets. And I get it. When you make it part of the facade, it's not quite a sign, but it kind of is too. It's sort of blending the two components. And so I just want to be clear that we do be mindful that all of this lit facade or all of this lit surface area does in fact behave like a sign. I mean, it is going to do that at night. It's going to be a bright element on the streetscape. And it's done in a way that obviously with current lighting technology is not going to be nearly as distracting or as glaring as some of the older technologies that I think we were working to remedy when we were talking about sign ordinances and lit backgrounds and things like that. But I think it's something that should always be on the forefront of what we discuss in terms of compatibility. And it seems to me that as it's proposed, and there haven't been any real foot candle readings, lumen readings, whatever it might be, to verify this. But at least for conversation, maybe we can agree that it's consistent with lighting that might be seen on a curtain wall in a lit building. It's nothing more than what you'd probably see for light spillage from a fully occupied office building along the side of the road that was at night. But it is moving closer and closer. These sorts of elements move closer and closer to being just another big sign on the roadway. So just to be mindful of that, and that we at least acknowledge that we're not crossing that line yet, but it's something that could get there at one point. And
it's a great comment, and I'll expand to say there are some unique conditions at this site to say that it is slightly set back, much like an office lobby would be, which I think, John, is what you're kind of referring to. A large office building lobby would probably be a two-story space, would be highly lit for presentation's sake, and would produce the same kind of large square of bright light. So this makes that same kind of setback, and it also has neighboring zones and businesses, and on a fairly major street that makes it somewhat of a unique. It's not a sign in the traditional sense where it turns 90 degrees from the road. It's disassociated from the actual architecture of the building, and it does have a setback. So I think there are some unique characteristics here that allow us to get past that concern. But I share your concern.
All right. Well, thanks for adding that. That helps.
Hey, this is Danny. I have one other question. Now I'm looking at the example of the, I guess it's Edmark Toyota in Nampa, and it looks like they have like the Toyota symbol over the front door, and that's not lit up, and then certified something or other on the other side. And in the rendering, it looks like just glass over the front door. Will it look? And my question is, will the Fitzgerald front door look similar to the Edmark front door with the Toyota symbol over it?
No.
You don't show it it won't. It's going to look just like this.
No. It's going to look just like you see in the rendering, I think, on packet page 56, if Chris can pull that up. Chris, would you mind if you zoom in on the portal itself? So what you see in the opening of the portal here is going to be almost exactly what's built in the field. So storefront, full height, and I say full height from the existing slab to the underside of the existing sort of overhang that goes around the entire building. That's all existing. We're just putting a new skin on it.
Okay.
So the new storefront will basically replace the existing storefront. So newer materials, better energy efficiency, clear glass instead of tinted and reflective glass. And then you see the doors here. The doors, I think, are 8 feet tall, so there will be about 3 feet of glass above the doors. There will be no additional sign above the doors like you saw in that Edmark Toyota image. Mm-hmm. John Bauer, I did want to address a question that you had a few moments ago. I was able to look it up while we've been here talking about other things. The height of the existing, or the formerly existing black pyramid roof on this sort of front volume of the building was just shy of 29 feet, about 28 foot 10. The top of the new portal is 24 foot 11. So we're a good 4 feet lower in height.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Appreciate that. All right, commissioners, any other discussion on this application? Now, actually, let me back into one other point. And Jasmine, help me with this. The environmental application, let's just make sure we're covering that and be clear about what that's for.
So back in 2016, when Fitzgerald came before commission for the concept site plan, there was an environmental site plan approved where they outlined how many trees are going to be planted for reforestation. And I noted that they did a fee in lieu as part of that forest conservation. Now, this amendment is just relocating just where the trees are located.
Okay, because of the parking lot island
Yep, so then
reconfiguration.
the number, they're just showing the new location of the trees.
Okay, commissioners, any concerns with that proposal? No? Okay, seeing nothing there. All right, and now to the facade improvements and some incidental site improvements, but certainly the facade is the biggest piece. Any concerns with moving forward on this renovation proposal?
No.
Mostly shaking heads. Okay. All right. Then I think with that, I'll leave my signage, the definition of sign and building, to the side for now, and ask if there's a motion, please.
Okay,
Could you remind us what the change was in the staff recommendation that you noted at the beginning?
So instead of section 24-212, it'll be 24-171.
Okay. Well, in that case, Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibit submitted, the applicant's testimony, staff reports, findings, and recommendations, grant SP 8869-2021 and ENV 8963-2021 Fitzgerald Lake Forest Auto Mall Toyota finding site plan approval, finding it in compliance with section 24-170 and 24-171 of the city code with the one condition.
second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let me do the roll call. Commissioner Wessel.
Aye.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn.
Aye.
Commissioner Cantrell.
Aye.
And I will vote aye as well. Thank you all very much. Good luck. It looks like moving the building into at least the current world, if not the future. So thank you for bringing that in. All right. Next up is AFP-8883-2021. Thank you all. Construction of a 4,700 square foot Shake Shack restaurant located at 150 Kentlands Square Place within the MXD mixed use development zone. And this is an amendment to final site plan. And I know that Chris Salzano from staff is presenting, but Greg, do you want to make an introduction first?
Sure, I can do that. So Christopher Salzano is a new planner with the city. He started about 5 months ago now. This is his first planning commission presentation. And so I just wanted to welcome to the commission, and I'm very excited to see his application tonight.
So welcome to the other part of your job, which is staying out late at night to do planning stuff. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Tech team, could you please turn to packet page 126? This is for amendment to final site plan application AFP 8883-2021. The applicant is requesting approval to construct a 4,700 square foot Shake Shack restaurant. This application is based upon the previously approved schematic development plan SDP 7712-2017, which was approved by the mayor and city council on July 16th, 2018, and site plan SP 8277-2019, which was approved by the Planning Commission on October 16th, 2019. As shown on the screen, the subject property is located within the Lowe's parking lot along a private driveway that connects 195 Kentlands Boulevard and 96 and 84 Main Street. The subject property is zoned MXD. Tech team, next page, please. Here tonight to present the application is Mr. Gary Underberg from Rogers Consulting.
Thanks, Chris. Good evening, Gary.
Good evening. Gary Underberg with Rogers Consulting. And actually, Vince Burke with Saul Centers is going to do the introductions. I'll come back and walk through the plan.
Okay, great. Thanks.
As usual, Gary's going to do and Kelsey will do the important part, but just wanted to introduce myself, know all of you, Vince Burke here with Saul Centers. Thank you for having us in tonight. We're excited to be here. As Christopher mentioned, in furtherance of our 2019 approval for the Starbucks and the adjacent graded pad on which the proposed Shake Shack store will sit. You can go to the next slide to see our progress thus far. That's an image of the Starbucks from the Lowe's parking lot side looking at the drive-through. And the next slide. This shows the other side facing Kentlands Square Place and a little bit of the streetscape, but some of the cafe seating there. We're excited at how it turned out, and Starbucks is very pleased with the operations thus far. And I've heard, and hopefully it remains true, that the city is pleased with it. And we think that the Shake Shack will be a nice complement to this building and help build out the vision that we worked on with you all and helping frame that streetscape and increase the walkability here. It remains consistent with the design guidelines. We're excited to add Shake Shack to the center. We know there'll be a good fit and do a great business here, and think that the community will be happy with their quality offering. Want to just say thank you to Greg, Caroline, Christopher for all their help. We worked closely with them in getting this prepared to bring before you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Gary and Kelsey to walk you through the specifics. And if you have any questions, we're here to answer them. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Vince. Thanks for being here.
So let's go to the next slide. Well, not to the date, but 2 years ago, we were in front of you with a Starbucks site plan. And this was the rendering from that approval in July of 2019. Lowe's is the large white rectangle on the right-hand side of this aerial photograph. And then the rendered area is the tan building is Starbucks, which is now constructed. Our main street, or which has been named Kentlands Square Place, has our streetscape and our brick pavers, which are in the pink. And then the drive-through, in the middle of the drive-through, there's a stormwater facility. And this also shows the rest of the site work, the landscaping that has been installed over the last year with Starbucks opening. What this did do was leave a green, roughly a square, just north of the Starbucks building, and that's what we're talking about tonight. All this site work has been done. And with that, let's go to the next slide. And just we'll start a couple photographs, and this is zoomed in a little bit. Lower left-hand side are the brick pavers, the trees that were installed. And again, all installed in front of the Starbucks and also installed in front of what is to be a Shake Shack. The upper left-hand side, with Starbucks, we had a sidewalk that came out to our main street, or Kentlands Square Place. That was for their service store. That actually we will be removing, and you can see a little bit behind there is an asphalt sidewalk, temporary, that also will be removed. We go up to the upper left, upper right. Again, the parking has been installed next to the site for Shake Shack, and also that shows the temporary asphalt path that will be removed. And then the lower right-hand side shows the trash and recycling enclosure. That was constructed to serve both buildings, and so that is already existing. So all this site work is existing. The stormwater was built for both buildings. I do want to point out the one difference that we've been working with is that there is a 3-foot grade change from the left to right. So Kentlands Square Place is about 3 foot higher than the parking in the parking lot. All the Kentlands Square Place is high. Everything slopes from left to right. With Starbucks, we were able to have a level building, a level pad, and the grade was picked up through the drive-through and the stormwater pond. With Shake Shack, we are picking up the grade inside the building, and it's a 3-foot difference. So the Starbucks is about 3 foot higher than the Shake Shack pad. And that is so what we match up to the parking on the right-hand side. You'll hear about a pickup window. There's no drive-through, but we do have 4 spaces for pickup, and there's a separate pickup window in addition to the outdoor seating. And let's go to the next slide. This fills in the green square with the Shake Shack building. We're adding the sidewalks around it, working with the existing parking. The top of the Starbucks is now shown in gray, or that grayish blue color. We do have the north side of Starbucks is the back of house or service, and that matches up to the back of house or service for the Shake Shack. And there will be a concrete sidewalk that is new concrete sidewalk that comes from the parking lot side. And then all deliveries will be from the parking lot side. And we are closing off the gap between Shake Shack and Starbucks with fencing and a planter. With this, you can see the building itself, and on the upper left-hand side is the corner pointing to the view of the corner. About 25% of the building is covered, but also the outdoor seating, and that counts towards our grand total of 4,700 square feet for the building. And then in the upper right-hand side, there's a 3D perspective of the parking lot view and the pickup window. And you'll see some larger images of these as we go forward. So next slide. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelsey and let her introduce herself with Zebra, who are the architects with Shake Shack.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure, thanks, Gary. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey Ahumada, and like Gary said, we are the architect for Shake Shack. To address this east elevation, I'm going to talk through a couple things, but the first thing that's pretty obvious in the elevation that I want to point out is how the finished floor of Shake Shack is 3 feet lower than the adjacent Starbucks. So you'll see on the left of the screen, we kind of white boxed the adjacent Starbucks and are starting to highlight how we manage those grade changes. So like Gary alluded to, we ended up closing off this sidewalk in between the two buildings for a couple reasons. One, operationally, we obviously did not want to unload onto Kentlands Square Place, and for Shake Shack, it's a lot easier and more feasible and less disruptive if we unload from the front entry side, which is the east elevation that you see here. And then the gray portion on the left that you kind of see at the bottom left of the building is actually the back side of the retaining wall that you actually see, but this serves as a sidewalk to our back of house doors to be able to receive shipments. So that was one critical part of the building placement and why it matched the parking lot versus at grade with Starbucks. And as you can see, we made an attempt to not fully isolate the Shake Shack and make it look totally disproportionate from the adjacent Starbucks. So walking over to the other side, you'll see the same backside of the retaining wall, the patio, which I'll describe more on another slide. But one big item I want to point out on this elevation is the walk-up window. So you'll see where the storefront stops and the window begins is actually delineating our back of house space for our dining room. So we did maximize storefront basically everywhere the dining room was visible, and no storefront in our ancillary spaces that no one wants to see into. But the purpose of the walk-up window is to service those customers. We kind of understand all the changes that different food and beverage restaurants had to make to serve people in COVID. So this is one of Shake Shack's huge initiatives that's being rolled out not only at Kentlands but across the country. And what this is a walk-up window where customers will order ahead on the app. Like Gary mentioned, there are a few curbside pickup places where people can wait momentarily for their food, or they can walk right up to the walk-up window to receive their food. So because the way this initiative works is food can only be ordered on the app ahead of time, we will not experience any queuing out front. So it's not an order window. There can't be a long line of people trying to place orders at this window. It's solely for pickup only. So that's one benefit to that is, easier access for pickup, but also not creating any queuing. Just to the right of that walk-up window is a notification screen, which actually can tell people who are in the parking spaces or trying to walk up to the window if their order is completed or not. So, they don't have to stand at the window and wave someone down to ask if everything's ready. The order notification board is going to have all that information displayed. Before we move on to the next slide, I did want to touch on materials a little bit here, which we can get more into later in the presentation. But obviously we are complying with the design guidelines. We're at the bottom half of the building. You'll see we're using a large format tile. Shake Shack's brand is moving towards more clean, more modern, less busy, not tons of materials added, but really wanting to maintain kind of a dark bottom plinth, if you think of it conceptually that way, and then a white upper portion of the shack, which is pretty indicative of their brand and how they showcase their brand in other locations. So at the top portion, I'm sorry,
before you go to the next slide, I have to ask, and I haven't been to many Shake Shacks, so I apologize if this is obvious to everybody else on the call. But in your whole kind of menu lineup on the fascia board frieze there, it says concrete. What is that?
A concrete is actually a mixed frozen custard with add-ins.
All right.
So it's an ice cream, a style of ice cream that they serve. Yeah, yeah.
Danny and I can describe it to you later, John, if you need us to.
I had to Google it to make sure they weren't, selling ready mix.
That seems like it'd be a real weight problem, but I don't know. All right. So get back into materials if you would.
Yeah, sure. So top half of the building, we're looking at a painted white wood cladding. And again, the brand is going away from the manufacturer's name is ADIS. It's a corrugated metal panel, which you'll see very frequently on a lot of other shacks, and we're using it minimally on the interior, not at all on the exterior. But we're trying to move away from that corrugated metal look and into kind of more classy, more durable, more simple, clean line, better produced materials. So that's where we come into the white wood cladding on the top half. And then we'll talk more about some of the finishes at the patio and the underside of the canopy once we can get a visual on that. So if you can move to the next slide, please. So here, what I want to point out is someone facing the building is actually not going to see this angle that leads up from the entry up to Kentlands Square Place. This is just showing the grade difference between the two. So someone standing on the sidewalk adjacent to this railing is actually going to be able to look down into the patio. So just wanted to call that out. Another thing to point out on this slide is how we're maximizing the storefront. So all this will be visible into the dining room, maximizing planters and real plants out there. And we have string lights. One thing to note as we're starting to move around the building is the sign band that you alluded to, what we call it the band of letters. And that's exactly what it is it's a C channel that has an LED tape light that uplights these the words and the lettering, and again, that's just very brand specific. So go ahead and move to the next slide. Here is showing the south elevation. This is the elevation that actually faces the Starbucks. So you'll also see that grade change, but someone standing in the built environment is actually not going to be looking at white triangle, right? So what will actually happen if you're at the top left side, you will lean over the railing and see, that the 3 foot below grade, which is where our back of house access doors are. The shaded person on the right is kind of showing where people will enter with dollies. Obviously, this also provides at grade egress for people inside as well. What you'll also see on this elevation that I didn't point out on the other is the small canopy that hangs over on the right side, which is on the entry, which is just a small overhang that provides cover to the walk-up window and also to the entry doors. Next slide, please. And this is our elevation on Kentlands Square Place. So you'll see again how we sort of white box the Starbucks adjacent to it, how we're starting to propose to close off the access between Starbucks and Shake Shack. So, you know, we don't want to encourage any pedestrian traffic, but we also don't want to have one big nasty wall that hides everything behind it as well. So we're extending the railing. Obviously we need to do so because of the grade change at the sidewalk there, but the planter is at grade and matches grade with Starbucks, which is a better way of closing off that access, preventing pedestrians from going through there, but not doing so with such a heavy hand. Another thing to note on this elevation is, you know, we've added a few seating tables out here to better that pedestrian access or pedestrian involvement. But you'll also see we have patio access through a set of stairs down into the patio. So someone coming to the Shake Shack can either come down the patio and into the building from Kentlands Square Place, or you can walk around to the main entry as well. So both options are available. The storefront that we've added here, because of the grade change, the bottom of this storefront would actually be the top of the back of the banquet seating that's on the interior. So people walking Kentlands Square Place is going to get a real great show looking down into the dining room. So it'd be fairly interactive. And then where you see the table and chairs, where we have the solid material, where the large format tile is our back of house services. Actually on this wall, we have bathrooms mostly. So we didn't extend the storefront past that. So another thing you'll see is we started to rotate some of our materials to provide a little bit of visual interest. This corner is actually the corner that you'll see driving up Kentlands Square Place before you turn right into the parking lot. So next slide, touching more intricately on the materials, where you can kind of see our screenshots here, where we're showing that painted shiplap, the large format tile. We're going to have a separate tile base that's going to be going on the exterior of the building. Then we're looking at the wood cladding ceiling finish, which again is in compliance with the design guidelines, not a fake finish, painted, stained, all of that. We also started to show the Conair storefront, just, you know, calling out that that's color is going to match our large format tile. And then looking at the retaining wall, so we're wanting to propose a board form textured feel rather than just seeing a clean face of poured retaining wall. So then, you know, calling out some of the paint colors that you'll see that are on the exterior, mainly painting the band of letters that you see, some of the columns, but also calling out the string lights. You can see a little image of how the LED tape light lights up those band of letters. And then also showing you that recess can that we're going to use on the overhang. So if you want to go to the next slide. This slide we won't spend much time on, just talking about the furniture package that's going to be going out on the patio, calling out the planter, and then we're also proposing a shuffleboard table out there on the patio as well. Next slide, please. And then, like Gary alluded to, this is the rendering at the entry of the Shake Shack. You know, trying to show the texture of the wood cladding on top, the smoothness of the large format tile, how people will interact with that walk-up window. And then obviously one huge call out is the transparency. You know, how we want to keep it as transparent as possible. So that visibility is continuous, and then also viewing into the patio seating, so the ample outdoor seating. Next slide, please. And then here's the shot from Kentlands Square Place. So you'll see access down into the patio through those stairs. You'll see the overhang for the patio really starts to kind of play with human proportion a little here, very interactive with the string lights, also with the uplights at the C channel and the band of letters. And then again, where you can kind of see the storefront and then the tables along this access as well. So that concludes our presentation. I'll open it up to questions or clarifications.
Great, thank you very much. Well done presentation. It's a really nice way to show off the building. I did have sort of one fundamental planning decision question about a planning decision. Why did you all create the floor level at the back side of the site and not on what you now call Kentlands Square Place side? In other words, engage the street as opposed to engaging the parking lot behind. What was the decision making in that?
I'll take a stab at that, but part of that decision making is we did look at the pickup window concept and wanted the restaurant to be the same level as the parking lot. And then we also looked at handicap access with the handicap spaces on the parking lot side, so we could provide handicap access to the store itself. So that's somewhat what drove that decision.
So the assumption is most of your customers will be coming from the parking lot side, either driving in or because there's an accessibility question. You'd want to pull them in from that side anyway. We on the other hand had always thought about what these new pad sites would do to activating the streetscape along what are you calling it? Kentlands Square Place. I got to get used to that name. Did it have a name before? I don't think it had a name before, did it?
It did not have a name before. So for addresses, it now has a name. Okay.
But anyway, so the whole purpose was obviously to activate that, and now you've sort of turned your back or turned your side to it with this building. So it's just something to kind of get clear on what constraints there were to drive that decision. Driving by, I mean, it appears relatively flat, but I trust you shot the lines and know that there's a fair amount of slope there. So I know that's all legit. All right, commissioners, questions?
Yeah, I've got, following up on your line of questioning, John, I've got one related to grade and entrance, and then another one related to delivery. One approach to that some of the other stores on pad sites at Kentlands have taken, and I'm thinking specifically of Cold Stone. Now, they don't have quite the same grade issues, but they have two front entrances. They've got an entrance directly off the sidewalk on the corner, and they've got a back door, and 50-50 who uses what door, but they're both sort of equal in access to the space. Obviously, it's a much smaller space. Did you guys look at any options for providing sort of a redundant set of doors? I know it impacts indoor seating, but whether it's with an interior set of stairs, you come in off of Kentlands Square Place and step down in the restaurant. I mean, because my biggest hang up is the same thing John noted, which is that elevation along the front of the building. Let's be honest, the front of the building faces the street. It shouldn't face the parking lot. Is sort of inactive. So did you guys look at any options for providing a equally functional and important entrance to the front of the building?
To some extent, and just going back to Chipotle and Cold Stone, that does still have the same grade change, but because that is two users, there's a grade change within the building. Yep. So Chipotle is up higher and Cold Stone's down lower, which doing that with two tenants is a little bit different scenario. But what the other bigger picture, what we did take a look at is how it did try to look at the relationship to Starbucks, where on the south side, Starbucks has their main seating and they really have two doors, which obviously they have a door on Kentlands Square Place and a door to the south with their main seating area. Shake Shack, we're proposing the patio it's really the reverse or the mirror image of Starbucks, to put the two service doors back to back between the two buildings. but there is, I think it is relative. There's a double door on the patio. So when you go to the patio, there's a front door on that side, which is the north side. And as Kelsey said, there's a front door also on the pickup side. So there are multiple doors. And I don't know if we need a graphic to show that again, but there are a pair of doors on the north side in the patio area.
Okay. And we can dive more into this when we get into discussion. I think my other question is what the loading and delivery strategy is for this facility. And I'm asking that in light of some observed issues with loading and delivery at Starbucks and some of the other pad sites on here. So what is your plan? What size trucks and where are they going to park, and how are you going to, make deliveries and replenish supplies at this facility?
So I'll start, and then if Vince and Kelsey want to add to this, but and I know part of the issue right now, since Starbucks does have a sidewalk that comes out to Kentlands Square Place, we're removing that. And then all deliveries for Shake Shack and Starbucks will be directed to the parking lot side. And that's, I think Vince can maybe talk more to that, from the owner's perspective.
Yeah, we had heard that that Starbucks was creating an issue there on Kentlands Square Place, and obviously that wasn't our preference, and we know that's not yours. And we've been proactive in addressing that with the tenant directly, and think, as Gary said, closing off that access from the front kind of doubles down on that. So we've addressed it specifically and gotten a good response from the store manager. And if I know that I first heard about that months ago, if that still remains an issue and somebody's seen it recently, please let me know, or let me know in the future. But again, we are policing that as actively as we can. It is a problem with all of our properties, urban, suburban, otherwise, that the loading trucks sometimes do what they want to do. But we think we've solved that with the design here a little bit in a good way, closing off that entrance. And Kelsey might speak to it better, but they're using smaller format box trucks and loading prior to operational hours. So they'll pull into those order spaces and load with the dollies from there into the back of house. Kelsey, did I miss anything there?
No, what I was just going to tag on was, by putting the service doors, the doors that they actually have to dolly into at grade on the other side, it de-incentivizes them from parking on the Kentlands Square Place side, walking all the way around the building with their dolly to the back doors, when it's so much easier for them to park on the parking lot side, bring the dolly up to the back door, and then out again. So couple solutions there.
And Phil, I'll go back to your question on the siting. I mean, I think, we're trying to balance that, both creating, exciting and visually compelling street frontage there and a good walkable experience with those pavers. And we added glass looking in to the store there. I think it's not that big of a store, so internalizing that stair might be a little awkward. And actually with the double doors from the patio and that entry feature of the patio itself, we think it draws people in to the patio, and they can access those stores easily, and then also preserves the easy access for handicap patrons and those in vehicles, which is predominantly the shopper we still have here. So we think it did a good job of looking at both sides of the coin there, and paid attention to that, working with staff on that, and adding that glass and the seating out front to activate the Kentlands Square Place side as well. So that was our thinking.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Danny. I had a quick question. Well, just a little discussion about the walk-up window, and I guess that's in lieu of a drive-through, and I think it works. This site certainly doesn't lend itself to a drive-through, and of course, there are not a tremendous amount of drive-throughs in the Kentlands, area. But was there a thought to having a little canopy over that that little window?
Yeah, sure. Maybe we can pull up actually, I think it's actually page 139. We can pull that rendering back up. We do actually have an overhang from the canopy that does provide shelter at that walk-up window.
Oh, okay. We're just not on the 2-dimension, okay, that we see here. Okay. But
Yeah,
no,
it's
I mean,
hard
I like the idea. I like the idea of the walk-up window, considering, we want the Kentlands to remain walkable. So, oh, okay. Thank you. Great.
Yep. Yeah,
Great.
good.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Any other questions? Matt, Sharon, anything for the applicants team?
There's
Sorry,
some
I have a
comments
question.
and discussion, but no questions.
Well, real quick, the parking that's up on next to the walk-up window, do you envision people just picking up their food and driving away? Are they going to be dining in and it just, I mean, is there a time limit? How do you envision this? I think you said 4 spaces. Yeah.
Yeah, we have 4 spaces that are designated for pickup. And it's not in the rendering, but in the packet, there are signs that show temporary parking pickup only. And I think, Kelsey, they had a 15-minute time period on them. So the intent is you pull in, walk up to the window, hopefully with your app, you know when your food's ready, pick up your food and then leave. And it's not, they are signed, and the intent is not to have somebody park there and eat their food, because in theory there are other people, because I know Shake Shack wants to sell a lot of burgers and shakes and etc. But you pick up your food and then leave.
Yeah. I know Chipotle had done something, not Chipotle, Chick-fil-A had done something similar during COVID. I don't know if they're still doing it, where you just order and then you leave and behind, and they bring the food out to you because they don't have a drive-through either.
It's similar concept, but
Yeah.
this does have, and I think most of the Chick-fil-A's are doing it in the existing parking lots,
Yeah.
where this will have the dedicated spaces.
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay, thanks very much. And I'll add 2 more questions and then we can go to do the public and to the recommendation. The height of the building as it's shown in the renderings or in the elevations, I assume that represents a parapet that's hiding all of your mechanical equipment on the rooftop equipment. Is that true? Yeah.
Yes, that's true. In the packet, page 166, we do have some building sections that show how the parapet fully screens all that rooftop equipment.
And I assume losing 3 feet on the Kentlands, I've got to get used to this name, on the street side. You're losing 3 feet there, but that isn't compromising that viewing angle, I guess. Yeah, so you've got plenty of height. Okay.
Yes, correct. Yep, we kept that in mind.
Very good. Okay, and then just to clarify, the slope from Kentlands Square Place to the sidewalk that would take you to the formal front door, which is the elevation facing back toward the parking lot. You said that's a 3-foot elevation change?
Yes.
And so you're picking all of it up in a straight slope. You're not needing to create any kind of switchbacks or other conditions.
Correct. So the existing parking lot is roughly a 5% slope. So when you do all the math, the difference from the Kentlands Square Place to our existing parking spaces is 3 feet, which again, that walk that is along the connecting drive aisle, that's just under 5%.
Okay.
Which meets the ADA codes and so forth.
Right. Okay, very good. All right, if there aren't any more questions, any other questions for the applicants team, I am going to formally ask if anyone in the audience is interested in commenting or testifying, but the channel that would have those folks queued up to talk includes exactly one person, that's Z Norris, and I happen to know that's the tech team placeholder. So not seeing anyone, let me ask the tech team, if somebody is just dialing in and not watching via the video, would they show up in this list as well?
I would want to say yes, but there's no one that looks like they're in the queue right now.
Okay. So I think not seeing anyone, at least being able to access at this point, and therefore not really being able to comment, let's go ahead to the recommendation, and if somebody does jump in, we can acknowledge and offer them an opportunity if they do come in. So Christopher Salzano, let's do the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report, findings, and recommendation, grant AFP 8883 2021 final site plan approval, finding it in conformance with section 24-170 and 24-171 of the city's zoning ordinance with one condition.
Great, thank you very much. Ed, nice job, by the way, tonight on preparing the packet and getting this all queued up, and nice work.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, let's put into discussion concerns that might have come up during your question and answer. Anybody want to start with?
Start, if it's okay.
Go ahead, Matt, please.
I think, yes, it's a great package, and I think the detail and thoroughness of the package helped a great deal to alleviate some of my concerns. But I think our key here is really that the design packet and the Kentlands design packet really focuses on this streetscape being a welcoming and detailed walk, and some places people are happy to walk up and down and stop at. And I think with that in mind, I completely understand, I think, the orientation of the store. I frankly, I think it's nice to do the sort of the mirror image and have a nice big patio that sits up against, but actually reaches back into the parking lot as well. So I think that the general diagram is right. I think there's some repair that needs to be done to a couple of the elements that are along the street side that could work towards keeping the same design, but increasing the movement, so that the little stair that drops down onto the patio, that drops the 6 steps down onto the patio, it's small, it's thin, it's less than 6 feet now. If it were 8 or 10 feet, it makes for a very comfortable passing each other with bags in your arms kind of entrance and exit. It's not, maybe it doesn't reach the monument level of stairs, but it'll be a large stair where you can actually pass back and forth. And I also think you sort of miss the opportunity of a nice solid wall there as it turns the corner. Having a solid wall as it turned the corner onto the patio is irritated me at first, but I kind of get that maybe if you had the stair against it, it could make a little more sense. And then you just have more, seating area that's out towards the corner. Have it line up with your yard or your whatever the game is, the yard game. And have it be bigger. It doesn't need to be monumental, but it should be really, really comfortable for folks to come up, in and out of, and it really should feel like a big welcoming swoop. So as you come down that sidewalk, you should very easily be able to turn and go down that corner into the patio, and it should really feel like a main entrance. And it's also just, it helps move it towards the, geographic center of the building, I think might help. And then the 3 sort of cafe seating pieces are I think a good solution. It's sort of a lighthearted solution to a bigger problem, but I think it kind of works. They can't be missing, right? So it can't be something that shows up in a site plan, doesn't show up in the real world, right? Which is an easy thing for cafe tables to do. But I would also think that especially evening, it's going to be when it's really we're going to want it activated, right? So it's after work hours, before Kentlands goes to sleep early, but there's some time in the middle there, and I think lighting is the other thing that's missing there. So if you accented those 3 tables, I don't think you'd want. I agree with your sort of analysis of simplified modern detailing. It makes this building unique within the property. It all works, but I think 3 individual lights, whether they're a fan light, whether they're little pin light down light, whether there's something that accentuates that wall and those tables there, that makes it something a little bit more exciting, would be great. The old traditional stuff that we would do in these urbanist things, and in Kentlands, which is big, super graphic, or some fake windows or something like that. I agree it doesn't meet your aesthetic. But I think some very clean, simple lighting solutions. It could be ground lighting. There's a number of solutions there. And then I would also ask you to look and see if you can get the same overhang, that same 3-foot overhang on the rear. If you can get it on the front, right? The little overhangs do great things for pedestrians as they come down the street. If it starts to drizzle, if it's a little bit of sunblock. I know this is south facing. We're no, this is west facing, right? So it's probably probably doesn't block any sun, but it does a great deal for creating space, creating architecture, and treating that front door a little bit more like a front door. So those are my thoughts, and I'm sorry to be prescriptive. Usually I lead you down the path, but it's already getting late, so I'm just going to give you my opinion.
No, great. I'd love to address a couple of those things. I know our floor plan is page 162, if we can pull that up. First, I want to address the location of the stair, because I totally understand we actually went through a couple iterations on that. But what we wanted to do, and hoping I can show you this on the screen if it'll help a little bit easier, you'll see that the stair spits you directly down the aisle of the patio seating. So the wider the stair, we didn't want to dump anybody into the back of a patio table. You know, we could start to look at removing some tables, but the talk about removing tables to a restaurant owner makes everyone cringe a little bit. But obviously that is an option we can look at widening that just a little bit. But that was the reasoning for the placement, because we still wanted to allow proper access to the shuffleboard table, proper access between the tables, and keeping that aisle clear for egress as well. So that was one consideration. And then I know you talked about that solid wall. The solid wall really is just a structure. We were starting to approach issues with some torsion and some shear. So having that wall there actually helps, you know, the twist of the building to maximize the storefront. We played with the location of where that solid, where our shear wall was basically going to live. If it was at that corner, if it was at the opposite corner, and we did end up going with this corner to allow the entry side, the parking lot side, to be fully transparent. So that's kind of how we came to that conclusion. And then your comment about the overhang on the Kentlands Square Place side, you know, we can coordinate with Vince. I know we're right up against our limit line there, and what that overhang would do to you know, our property itself, and all of those things can be negotiated. But definitely heard on the lighting. We actually did have an iteration where we added some sconces along that side of the building too. We started to pull back because of the human proportions out there. You know, the bottom height of the C channel on that side is 8 feet. So putting a sconce below that C channel, we were worried that people were going to mess with it if it was any lower than that. But we can look at maybe some integrated lighting to the bottom side of the C channel to kind of downlight that side. So that's an easy add for sure.
Yeah, I think Matt did a much better job of coming up with suggestions than I would have for the concerns that I think we all share. I think washing that wall with light on both sides, for what it's worth, at least the renderings on the backside where you've got a 3-foot canopy don't show any light there either, which I'm sure you're going to want light there if your pickup window's there. So just lightening up that facade with some can lights or some integrated lighting, I think would do wonders. And at least looking at the plan, I hear what you're saying about the stair. I think making it wider and shifting it closer to the building, I think you can reshuffle some tables and, you know, at most lose one table and still make it work. I think that's definitely worth putting some effort into.
Well, I have more confident than Phil does that you'll be able to get just as many chairs in there, just as many tables in there, and move the stair. So and I don't want it to make it sound like I was asking for a monumental stair, you know, a 10-foot stair or something. It's showing at like 5 feet right now. That's an uncomfortable dimension for two people to pass each other. I'm a bigger guy, and nobody wants to pass me on the stair. And so I think, you know, if you can get to 6, 6.5, 7, if you can get to 8, it's gorgeous. But I think it looks to me, my architect's eye says we can get a 7-foot stair in there and still have just as many tables and chairs. But
Yeah,
where you want to put it's up to you guys. But
yeah, no, we agree. We can definitely make that change. So I think that's an add we'll definitely incorporate No discussion about it. We'll make the stair wider and see how it looks moving it closer to the building, but definitely making it wider.
I'd go one step. I'd go one step further. I'd go one step further on the stair. You know, lacking an actual entrance from Kentlands Square Place. I'll get used to that in the next year or so. Lacking the actual formal entrance to the building from the street side, the stair is going to carry do a lot of the heavy lifting for the welcoming sense from the street, or the idea that when you're walking on the street, there's a there. And you know, even if that stair were the full width of the patio, I mean, you could imagine people then would sit on the top step. Maybe they'll just pull over and sit on the stair, and there's still plenty of room to pass by. Or you know, there's a couple of people that happen to recognize somebody, and they can actually stand there and kind of have that half conversation, and again, not block, you know, who's coming and going. I think you want this stair to be the welcoming element. I mean, even to the extent that not only is it wider, but there may be even something about it architecturally. Maybe it's the finish of the treads, maybe it's the railing itself was a little bit more special at that point. It's not just a safety railing, but it has a real sense of a point of entry. I think all of that makes sense given the fact that you don't have anything else on the street right now. So I take it. I mean, once you say it's going to be wider, I would take it to the next level and really make it something special, not monumental. I'm with Matt. This isn't about creating, you know, the big entry arrival moment for somebody in a long dress, but you know, there's a certain civic and urban quality to a really done wide stair that creates all kinds of opportunities for welcoming, for sitting, for gathering, whatever it might be. And I think that's a real opportunity here, lacking anything else on this street. The other thing I wanted to kind of talk through, the idea of seating on this side of the building makes me a little nervous in one respect, and that is, since there isn't really a direct connection from, you know, you picking up your food to then going out here and eating, especially with the really generous outdoor seating that happens in the covered patio and on the you know, everywhere else. I wonder out loud if the seating up here needs to be something that's a little bit more civic quality. Like it's not necessarily just the same tables and chairs you would have in the restaurant that could very easily be picked up and left halfway across the sidewalk and never seen by somebody inside the building unless they physically come out and kind of tidy things up. And you know, things get busy and they won't necessarily do that every 15 minutes. They might get out there every hour or something. But it's not, you know, it's not in front of a window. You can't really see it. It's not in a logical path of travel for people coming and going. So maybe that seating element, it's a great idea. I think it'll really be nice, but maybe it takes on a little different role to be both restaurant seating, but also something that's friendly to somebody walking by. And maybe there's a quality about it that's not quite so temporary. Maybe it's a more fixed, more durable, more something. I don't know. You can play with that idea, but you're basically offering something to the streetscape here that isn't necessarily just a cafe seat, but has some more substantial use. And frankly, you know, if somebody at Starbucks stops and sits there with their coffee, that's okay. Or if, you know, somebody from across the street's walking by and decides to sit down and finish their other food, you know, whatever it is, or whatever, have a conversation, that's okay too. It's sort of a cooperative zone, you know, with the street, and not necessarily just more of the same from the restaurant. And I think that could go along with the lighting. I'm totally reinforcing that both facades need lighting. They need, you know, grazing lighting, up lighting, down, whatever you want to do, but something that really does animate the facade at night. But otherwise, I think there's some really solid decisions here, and solid scale and use of materials, and the way that the building works itself into the site. It's kind of too bad. I didn't realize that the grade change was going to play this role. I'm sort of sorry to see that now, but on the other hand, you know, it's an existing condition that we don't have a lot of control over. But I think you play up a couple of these elements that you're sort of dealt, and you know, the seating, the lighting, the stairs. If you make those something, I'll be perfectly blunt, they won't be prototypes for you. They won't be things that you've just got in the pattern book already. They're probably going to need to be a little bit more site specific, a little bit more developed for just this particular situation. And that's frankly what we'd look for anyway. You know, we're not necessarily looking for just the same old thing everywhere.
Brilliant as usual, John. But I would even say that whatever that civic seating pieces, I think was, well, how you sort of categorize it as civic seating pieces. We could always obviously use that waiting civic seating on the other side by the by the other piece too. And yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea actually, and it's an opportunity for a little bit of simplified modernist art if the applicant wants into some kind of bench seating. It's another opportunity for social seating, the chessboard, whatever it is. And I really kind of in love with John's idea of the sort of the stadium seating at the entry. So if those seats went all the way across, and you could actually get seating out of the stairs, right? You did an 18-inch tread for two, and then had two staircases, maybe breaking that up. You're actually getting seating out of it without, and still creating this sort of monumental entry. That's kind of neat. But we're all designing, and that's not our job. So.
I know. That's what happens when you get a bunch of architects in a room, right?
I think so.
Well, we do need to push it. We need to push past conventions sometimes when the site plans deal you some constraints that are not, not great.
Sure. I actually am going to take that back. I think that's a great idea. I think that is a great proposition back to the client, kind of as also a defense mechanism. We're removing tables, but look, we're going to give you stadium seating instead. So, it's not quantifiable in the same way, but I think it's definitely a more interactive solution. So understood on that. And then also understood on the seating choice that's used along Kentlands Place. So we'll look at that a little bit more closely with our vendors and pick a different solution there.
One other detail I want to just do 2 minutes on. If you go to the elevation, and I apologize, I don't have the packet open. I just closed it because I was having processing problems there. But anyway, on the pickup window side, either the elevation or the perspective that shows the pickup window, Steph,
I believe it's
anybody?
packet page 139.
Thank you. Here it comes. Okay, so this is your main entrance, and all the comments about lighting it so it really looks like an entrance on the overhang all make sense. The window looks a little bit stuck in and kind of as an afterthought. You've established this really, really elegant, beautiful datum where all of the storefront lines up. You've got this really nice horizontal language happening with the overhang. All this really works, and then all of a sudden this little window is just kind of, no particular size or shape. It is what it is, and it's plopped into the wall. And because it's adjacent to the main entrance, I so want it to feel more integrated with the storefront system somehow, some way. Shape, size, maybe it's spandrel above and below and picks up the modules, whatever it is, but somehow not just what appears to be kind of an afterthought or just another pickup window. Again, integrated in a way that really makes that facade special to the folks approaching it. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't have a solution, but I don't think it's there yet. I mean, I think the service is a great idea, and it's certainly in keeping with a walkable community to be able to walk up and pick up something without committing to sitting down or going in. I think all of that's fine, this level of service. But architecturally, that on a front of a building, which is what this is, I think needs to be developed a bit more.
No, great point. We did look at that too. Obviously, we had tried to avoid the spandrel, which was a solution Shake Shack didn't really want to proceed with, just because of all the power and all of the needs of that window on the service side of that. It was better used as a full wall where we could run power up it. But we can look at that. We can try to find a solution to kind of integrate that a little bit more cleanly with the storefront.
Somehow, I mean, maybe the storefront changes then to embrace the proportions of the window and what it has to be. I don't know. Somehow you make it all make sense together.
You can always just put a wall behind the spandrel. I mean, it's invisible. I mean, it's opaque anyway.
Yeah, and I'm not jumping to a solution. What I'm getting at is just the idea of trying to create some kind of one nice cohesive treatment there that the pickup window doesn't interrupt. All right. I'm tapped out with comments. I have to back up and say, overall, though, really nice presentation. Thank you for doing it. I see Vince's hand up, but you're on mute. Vince, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just was wondering, thank you. Kelsey, does that C channel project out already on the Kentlands Square Place side? Looked like it from the rendering, but I wasn't sure. To Matt's comment.
Yeah, it does slightly, pretty much the depth of the sea channel.
Okay, and Matt, you were looking for it to mirror the other side in terms of its depth, like human scale. I mean, Gary, staff, we're not leasing any space out there in the sidewalk. I don't see an issue with it. Of course, I'll take it back to our folks, but I think that would be fine with us.
Yeah, so with the STP provisions, we're allowed to overlap up to 3 feet beyond our initial envelope. So I think that would fall into that category. So whether that's a 1 foot or up to 3 foot for the overhang, I think we can accommodate that.
Yeah, we'll look at that. We'd prefer for it to cantilever rather than, the colonnade like we do have on the entry side. So we'll evaluate with the structural engineer.
Perfect. Great point. So let me take an opportunity here. Sharon, anything to jump in on? Okay. Danny, anything further?
No, well, this is one of the first projects that my wife asked me about. She said, "When's Shake Shack coming?" And I'm like, it hasn't come before us yet. So there's a lot of buzz.
Yeah. All right. Phil, anything further?
Good.
No, I think I'm good. I think we've satisfactorily addressed all of the concerns I had. So
Matt, anything else tonight on this one? No. All right. So Chris Salzano, the discussion about stairs, seating, lighting, pickup window, do you want to fashion a condition to capture all those that essentially is staff to work or applicant to work with staff to resolve blah, 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 blah. Is that how we might do that?
I can jump in there. Yeah, I think a condition makes sense here. I think the condition could read applicant to revise west and east elevations and outdoor seating stairs to enhance streetscape to be approved by staff prior to issuance of a building permit.
Commissioners, does that sound okay to you?
does that address lighting? I mean, enhanced streetscape, I mean, it can be all encompassing. I just want to make sure that we're capturing the lighting on those two facades.
Yeah, understood. I think based off the discussion tonight, I think that it definitely can include the lighting as well.
Okay.
I did want to point out, we are currently showing the can lights on the entry side, so on the east elevation.
Right.
So there is additional lighting there, but noted on the additional wall wash type lighting or additional lighting features on the Kentlands Square Place side.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay, so that would give us condition number 2 then, I think, right?
That'd be correct.
Okay, Greg, you want to do that one more time for the record then, please?
Yep. Applicant to revise west and east elevations and outdoor seating stairs to enhance streetscape to be approved by staff prior to issuance of a building permit.
And then you'll reference the record on all the specifics about what we had talked about there. Okay. Thank you very much for that. So a second condition. All right, commissioners, any other concerns before we move to motion?
Nope.
No? Okay. Is there a motion, please?
All right, I'll do it.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibit submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff reports, findings and recommendations, grant AFP-8883-2021 final site plan approval, finding it in conformance with sections 24-170 and 24-171 of the city's zoning ordinance, with the 2 conditions that we addressed this evening.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Commissioner Wessel.
Aye.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn.
Aye.
And Commissioner Cantrell.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye as well. It passes unanimously. Thank you very much, all. Nice presentation. Good looking project.
Good luck.
Thank you all very much. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
Yeah,
You
have a
too.
good night.
Great job.
Appreciate it.
All right. So that takes us on our agenda to, what does it take us to? From the commission. Matt, may I start with you tonight?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Okay. Phil, anything tonight?
Nope, nothing for me.
No. Danny?
Just a quick note. I as MPCA president, what we're trying to be ambassadors and go around to all the different planning commissions that will have us and have like a little dog and pony show to say what we do and how we can help plan commissions, you know, just share information and that kind of thing. So we put together a dog and pony show. I didn't get it to Greg or John in time, but our next meeting, I'll certainly have it for them because I put it together. And since you all are a captive audience for me, I want to present it to you next time. So Sharon, please be there so you can see it as well. Okay.
Okay.
All righty. Thank you. That's it
Sounds
for
good,
me.
Danny. Thanks, Danny. And Sharon, anything tonight?
Yeah, so I think many of you know that I'm on the board of the Kentlands Community Foundation. We are having 3 events very close together live. So it starts at the end of July 31st with our concert, the Musica Viva concert. And then we go to August 7th with Kentlands Under the Lights. And then we go to September 4th, Labor Day weekend with the 5K. So we have a lot going on in Kentlands. Not only do we have the construction going on in front of Vasilis, which I kind of wanted to ask Greg or anybody if they know what the update on that is. If any of these things are going to be finished before Under the Lights. John, do you have any insight on that?
I don't right now, but I will check on that tomorrow and get back to you.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully before Under the Lights, August 7th. It's kind of our space. So that'd be great if you could check. I know they've been working on it since what, May? So thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. And we'll look forward to those events and back in person again, right? I mean, this is going to be
yes,
the reemergence of those events.
Yes, they're all binary, like you said. They either have to go on or off, and they're all on. We're frantically trying to raise some money and get some volunteers together. We already have more runners signed up for this race than we did 2 years ago when we did it live. So we had like 60 2 years ago, and now we have 160. So we think there's going to be a lot of people that are just gonna, you know, come out of the gates running, literally, because they're so anxious to have real life again.
Yeah.
So so we just would hope that we can keep moving forward with some of these projects so that we can get people out there. I think 2 years ago we had all these things. Do you remember the facades are being built at Kimco had nothing there, and now things are opening up again, and we've got some real life at Doghouse and Sinopolis and just, you know. So anyway, so hopefully the outdoor will be open.
Well, thanks for mentioning those. That's going to be good,
Great
busy
lineup.
time.
Great lineup.
Yeah. Very good. So where are we going next from staff? And we have something of a presentation or policy issue. Who's doing that?
That'd be me. So as you may recall, the city the city instituted a temporary outdoor dining.
You missed rehearsal, Greg.
So as you may recall, the city instituted a temporary outdoor dining permit to support local businesses dealing with mandatory reduced capacity limits in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This permit temporarily allowed restaurants to place tables and chairs in parking lots, sidewalks, and parallel parking spaces. Since May 28th, all dining restrictions have been lifted, both by the state and the county. And the way the permit was issued at the time, those temporary outdoor dining permits are no longer valid. While the dining restrictions have been lifted, demand has remained for outdoor dining. And in response, staff is implementing a new outdoor dining permit in lieu of requiring what historically was a minor amendment for the same thing. Additionally, the way the code is currently written, all covered dining facilities do require planning commission approval. Again, historically, those have been typically approved by the planning commission as the consent agenda item. To expedite the outdoor dining review, staff is requesting the planning commission delegate authority for all covered outdoor dining facilities to be reviewed by staff as a minor site plan amendment. The planning commission has this authority to delegate reviews pursuant to sections 172A, B3J of the city code. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So would that include, the big party tents that were used to create kind of a 3-season environment?
Correct, they would.
Okay.
And the way the code is once you basically throw a roof over top of it or any type of shelter, it does require the planning commission's approval.
Well, that's what I'm asking is if the staff approval of temporary dining could include like the temporary tent structures.
It would.
Okay.
So Greg,
I think.
Yeah, I'm thrilled because we were at Barrels and Brews or whatever it's called a couple weeks ago with the Ride Allegheny group, and they go there every Wednesday. And throughout the winter time, they really use that outdoor seating with the tent, and then it was gone. And so people were really up in arms, and they were talking about, how do we do a petition so that we can get the city to allow us to do all this? I'm like, don't talk to me, talk to John Schlichting. No, I really didn't say that, John. But everybody's going to be thrilled because I think people are so used to eating outside. They're going to be so happy that they can do that again.
Did you just
That's a very good point, because there's still a lot of anxiety and people still want to go out and enjoy, but they'd rather sit outside. So that's a good point, Sharon.
We don't know what's going to happen in the fall either. So.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's a larger urban planning trend with parklets and the idea of taking some of the parallel parking to do this, to activate sidewalks and create more capacity and more freely accommodate guests, especially at restaurants. I think we should do everything in our power to keep that easy to do. And if it was ever hard to do, never get back to that point. So
Matt's just loving that.
That's certainly true, and I can't agree with that anymore. I'm not going to reiterate the obvious, which is that we all want to eat outdoors when it's beautiful out, and it creates a much more active and vibrant streetscape. And I am reiterating it, so I'll stop. But I think my concern for this is where is that line? This is kind of the where is it a building, where is it a sign thing, right? That we were concerned about earlier. So it's Greg, can you help me understand? There's legit safety concerns about putting up tents and putting heaters under it that, I'm not, as an architect, like real excited about. As much as I enjoy those spaces, it's certainly not something that can be installed at a long term. It's not durable. It's not windproof. It has an enormous amount of. Essentially, you're putting a giant wind sail with metal poles in it, out in the general public, and eventually it's going to go through a house. Right, and you're also, it has a flammability issue. Even if they're commercial quality pieces, they don't stand up to any kind of small fire, and it can be a very quick way to hurt somebody. So all this stuff is, all these kind of concerns. I'm not, as John mentioned, I'm not as concerned about. I think staff is the one to pick out and say, look, these 2 spaces, these 10 spaces can be set aside for this amount of time, for this kind of weather, for a parklet, for a small eating area, whatever it is. But I don't quite know what the process is in order to justify and approve an enclosed, semi-enclosed, whatever patio that's part of it. So explain to me a little bit more, like give me some examples.
Yeah, so the permit would allow us to review it through our commercial permitting manager as well. We don't, again, typically right now, we don't really have a permit for outdoor dining. We did implement one during the pandemic to help, again, alleviate some of the issues with indoor dining. And I would envision this is going to go through the same kind of process where a planner, as well as commercial permitting, reviewed that, again, for the safety concerns that you raised. And I know for a fact they also looked at the tents as it relates to the heating, those temporary heating pedestals, you want to call them, I guess. And they had some concerns with those as well. And so most times those were not permitted. Now, if someone wanted this permit or this process would go a step further, and instead of allowing necessarily private, or it's not private, sorry, a temporary tent kind of structure, it would allow someone to also work with staff to create a more formal, more permanent structure as well, with a real roof instead of a canopy or a canvas roof.
Yeah. So, so give me an example of what would be a staff review versus what you would want to push back over into a consent agenda item.
I think anything that had a wall on it where you start actually creating a building, as we would probably envision, I would say would go to planning commission still. Anything that was open air and just had a roof structure to it, we would do it at staff level.
Okay.
These permits going to have an expiration date. So kind of following the logic that Matt has, these ought to be temporary structures technically, unless they do come in with full site plan approval and foundation structure, all the other stuff. But if it is a temporary dining, are you going to say it's only good for 6 months, 12 months, or?
We're not envisioning these being temporary. Again, the request is that the planning commission delegate, again, the roof structure over the dining to be reviewed by staff. Because again, right now, the way the code's written, that does require the planning commission's approval, regardless if it's got walls that drop down or if it's open air.
No,
It's
that
the
really-
roof itself that triggers the planning commission's review.
Right. No, what I'm getting at is if we do this, if somebody does do a roof, you all will issue a permit or no?
Yes, it would still receive a building permit.
No, not a building, a permit to be a sidewalk, temporary sidewalk dining.
We have a tent permit as well that could be issued in if it was a tent, if that's your question. I think what we envision with this is not really, again, a temporary situation, but more of a permanent outdoor facility.
Yeah, I think they're saying, I guess this is what I'm confused about, but I think they're saying that they'll make a permanent change to that site plan approval, essentially by staff approval. So
Yeah, anything that's got a roof over it would require a site plan amendment, but instead of it being reviewed by the planning commission, would be reviewed by staff.
Okay, and then back to Matt's question, how extensive does this have to be before it does actually turn into a public hearing and come before the commission?
Yeah, I think once you put a wall onto it and actually create an enclosed space, that was a building addition at that point, and we would need to take that back to the planning commission.
Okay.
And then my next step is, just so everyone knows, is I would create a memo kind of memorializing this discussion and this authority. And I can make sure in that memo, it also includes that, slight change, right? That once you had walls, that would require the planning commission's review.
I agree in principle. Maybe the right answer would be, and I don't, by the way, if time is of the essence to keep restaurants going that already have the expired permits and need to keep their open, then do whatever you need to do to make that happen. But what I'm thinking is that the criteria for what staff can approve, like specifically how it would be, a roof of what? A roof of fabric, a roof of any roof count. I think at some point that memo ought to probably be a more specific guideline or more specific set of criteria. So in other words, if you come in with the following, it's like a deck permit, you have all those little details and all those things. If you come in with this, it's staff approval. If you cross the line and you come in with anything more, or you come in with something like this, then it becomes a public hearing and a more formal approval. Here's what I'm after. So I'm whatever you can do to keep the temporary stuff going, keep it going. I don't want to stand in the way of that. But what I fear is that it becomes a little bit of a workaround to do covered patios and other things that probably ought to be done through a more formal site plan approval. But because you have this latitude at staff approval, begins to kind of creep up into the permanent structures. Tonight and at this moment, I trust fully that you would know that line. But over time, since these aren't temporary, over time, they begin to get a little bit bigger and fatter and more permanent and more monumental and more significant. And until finally, we've got some buildings around the city that really never went through the right process.
Well, but I think the part of the restraint here is that the buildings need the space to do this, right? Like if we've got a building that has 40 feet of unoccupied space next to it and they want to put a covered patio on it, that doesn't bother me. I think the reality is most of the facilities we're talking about are going to be naturally constrained by streets or by realistically how much parking they can take out without either impacting their own facility if it's a standalone or just taking out too much to where staff, it wouldn't be workable. So I somewhat share your concern, but I think like envisioning the unintended consequence, 10 years from now where people are just adding crazy canopies and causing other unintended issues, I think there's going to be a little bit of natural restraint built in just by the sites we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. I guess more concerned about, and I shouldn't have brought up too many specific examples because they're straw men, right? They're easy to knock down. But I think the real concern for me here is this sort of there's a staff judicial body relationship with the applicant that allows the judicial body, us and mayor and council, elected officials when needed, to sort of set some boundaries and limits that staff will have a harder time. When Portland offers Greg $1,000 a minute to go and work there, he'll go, right? And so we'll lose the certain amount of that. So making sure that an understanding that staff has the strength to say no to applicants is one of the reasons that planning commissions exist, right? Is that to say, look, you may think you are within rights, you may think there's a precedent there that allows you to make this change. Here are the reasons why staff doesn't believe it should happen. And if you disagree with that, there's a judicial body that will make that judgment, right? More than likely to one side or the other, more than likely to staff, right? And it's and with that, we're kind of breaking that process, and we're saying, look, to every applicant, all you got to do is bully staff, and you'll get what you want. I mean, that's a bad example and poorly put, but to me, it's breaking the cycle. So I think clarity is the only thing that's missing here, Greg. And I know you're going to work on some of that. So in principle, the idea is absolutely needed, wonderful, correct. We have, as John said, full faith in staff to make all these decisions. I in the big picture over the next decade or two, I wouldn't want to break that relationship between not staff and the planning commission, but the applicant and the staff and the judicial body. So there's a thing there that I know well better than we do, but that's where some of this clarity is going to need to come in, so that you can immediately say, hey, and I'm play acting, right? But you can say, look, applicant, I get it. You think you deserve it. You think it's right. You think the guy down the street did it exactly this way. But because you've pushed this button or that button, I'm going to push it to the judicial body, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where is that button in the code? Something. I'm not saying super specific. It can be very general language, but that ought to be in there. A little bit of clarification around that, and I think I'd be happy.
Yep. And it might be a memo, it might be a design guideline, it might be some combination of both, but something that does pin that down. So what do you need tonight?
So tonight, if I get a motion, I think to delegate the authority, that gets us the ball rolling on our end to get the permit out and get that to let people start applying for the outdoor dining facilities. And again, just to be clear, an outdoor facility itself currently only requires a minor amendment, a staff approval. We're going to remove the requirement of that and just do a permit. And that is any type of outdoor dining that doesn't require any site work. Throwing some tables and chairs on a sidewalk, for example, would be covered under the permit.
Okay.
The only thing I believe what I've heard tonight, the concern is about the covered outdoor dining and where that break point is between what's still a staff level and what's a planning commission review. And again, if we can get the okay tonight, I can return at the next meeting with a draft memo for you to kind of further delineate, I think, the differences between what's staff, what's planning commission's review.
Perfect. Wish you'd said that 20 minutes ago.
Matt would have to keep talking.
Seriously, that is the goal, to shut me up.
Okay. So any other comments or questions on this? No. All right. So Greg is looking for a motion. Anybody want to jump in on that?
So moved.
Outstanding. Second.
Okay.
Whatever it is, I'm all in.
Right.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. And for the record, Commissioner Hopkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Wessel.
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn.
Aye.
And Commissioner Cantrell.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye as well. Thanks, Greg, for enduring that discussion. But I think you understand our concerns.
I do. I appreciate, the planning commission delegating that authority to staff. And like I said, I will return at the next meeting with a memo, again, kind of memorializing this discussion. And again, trying to really hammer down on what is planning commission and what will be staff's review.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. All right. What else from staff tonight? Any more, Greg?
The last thing I have is just a reminder, the next planning commission meeting is July 21st.
All right, great. Thanks. And Planning Director Schlichting, thank you for coming and introducing our new city manager. Have you got any news tonight on Lake Forest or other big items?
You have a couple things, and yes, the meeting that Greg just mentioned, July 21st, is going to be a fairly big meeting because we are in the home stretch on the Lake Forest Mall Master Plan Amendment, and on July 21st, you will be actually voting on approving or not the Lake Forest Mall Master Plan Amendment. It is your role to approve it or not, and make a recommendation to the mayor and council to adopt or not. And that's going to happen on the 21st. your record closes actually this Friday at 5 p.m. And so that will be the end of the record for the master plan amendment for the Planning Commission. The other big item on your July 21st meeting is the 700 North Frederick. And actually, it's still tentative for July 21st. I will tell you, we're getting a lot of pressure from Matten to push this this project forward because they are getting a lot of pressure based on the very hot life sciences market right now. I'm not putting any pressure on you. It's just going to design a review team tomorrow, and how it goes tomorrow will depend on whether it's on your agenda for the 21st. That's all I have tonight.
Great, thanks, John. All right, anything else from anyone during a late hour here? Okay, if not, have a good evening, rest of your week. We are adjourned.